This is an American ship! Do you still want us to attack?
Yes. Follow orders.
But sir, it's an American ship! I can see the flag!
Never mind. Hit it.
So like a curious traveler on a quest, we embark upon a journey of information. Stay with us for a ride into knowledge.
The USS Liberty was an electronic intelligence gathering ship that was cruising international waters off the Egyptian coast on June 8, 1967. Israeli planes and torpedo boats opened fire on the Liberty during what became known as the Israeli-Arab Six-Day War. Now, thinking Egypt did it, the U.S. almost nuked Cairo afterward. President Lyndon Johnson dispatched nuclear-armed fighter jets to drop nuclear bombs on Cairo, but they were only recalled at the last minute, a 3-minute close call. Now, the combined air and sea attack killed 34 crew members, naval officers, seamen, 2 Marines, and 1 civilian NSA employee, wounded 171 crew members, and severely damaged the ship. Now, at the time, the ship was in international waters, north of the Sinai Peninsula, about 25.5 miles northwest of Egypt. Israel apologized for the attack, saying that the USS Liberty had been attacked in error after being mistaken for an Egyptian ship. Now, after the attack, a Navy court of inquiry concluded there was insufficient information to make a judgment about the Israeli attack, stopping short of assigning blame or determining whether it was an accident. It was one of the classic all-American cover-ups, said retired Admiral Thomas Moore, a former Joint Chiefs of Staff chairman who spent a year investigating the attack as part of an independent panel he formed with other former military officials. A former Navy attorney who helped lead the military investigation says that former President Johnson and his Defense Secretary Robert McNamara ordered that the inquiry conclude the incident was an accident. Johnson and McNamara told those heading the Navy's inquiry to conclude that the attack was a case of mistaken identity, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. President Lyndon B. Johnson acted as if his chief responsibility was to protect Israel from harm and criticism. And when he learned that a U.S. carrier had launched fighter aircraft to defend the Liberty, the president ordered the aircraft back to the carrier. That's the only time in U.S. naval history that rescue aircraft were ever called back while a Navy vessel was under attack. It was evidence that Johnson considered the Israeli sensitivities and the well-being of Israeli attack personnel. Maybe more than his own seamen. We don't know. It seems after the assault, Johnson continued to place Israel's interest above those of the Liberty survivors, taking immediate steps to protect Israel from public protest that might arise. He accepted quickly Israel's excuse of mistaken identity, which his administration has since reported they knew to be false. He ordered an immediate Navy court of inquiry, but instructed the chairman, Admiral Isaac Kidd, to absolve Israel of guilt. And in a recent sworn statement, retired Navy Captain Ward Boston, Jr., a member of that court of inquiry, declared that he and Kidd were convinced all along that the assault was deliberate and not a case of mistaken identity. The president also ordered Kidd to keep survivors from talking about this ordeal. As soon as they were brought ashore, Kidd complied with the presidential order by threatening the sailors, some still bedridden, with court-martial and imprisonment if they said anything publicly. And when the court completed its quick, limited inquiry and prepared a report, Kidd admitted privately to a colleague that he knew it was misleading. Now, before it was released to the media, however, Its texts were further sanitized for Israel's benefit by the Department of Defense civilian attorneys. And one of the items they deleted was testimony by survivor Lloyd Painter, who told the court he witnessed Israeli forces deliberately shooting lifeboats to pieces. Nicholas Katzenbach, who was moved by President Johnson from the Justice Department and appointed as an Assistant Secretary of State a few months before the Liberty Attack, may have, not on purpose, exposed revealing clues as to what was really going on behind the scenes during the Six-Day War and the USS Liberty Attack. He stated that most administration officials, including Navy personnel, did not believe the Israeli explanation that it was a case of misidentity. And he acknowledged that Johnson accepted the apology for political reasons, but felt that Israel should have offered the families generous compensation, with an implicit understanding that they would be reimbursed. 4 years later, the State Department announced that the government of Israel had paid the full amount claimed by the U.S. government on behalf of the families of the 34 Americans killed. The compensation paid to the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv was about $4 million. But back to President Johnson. Evidence indicates that planning in collaboration with Israeli leadership for Israel's war with her neighbors included a subplot to have Israel attack the USS Liberty, which was added at Johnson's direction. I said evidence indicates that planning. Now, by sacrificing his own ship and all the men aboard through an attack by the Israeli Defense Forces, but putting the blame on Egypt, he could join Israel in its war, kill his hated enemy, the Egyptian president, and win back the voters who had come to dislike him for his handling of Vietnam, thereby ensuring a landslide election in 1968. Now, over the years, survivors have pleaded repeatedly with administration officials, congressional committees, individual members of Congress, and the media for full disclosure of the truth. The sad and simple truth is that most Americans, especially those in public office, and even those in the presidency, have a deadly fear of being labeled anti-Semitic. No matter how well documented the charges, they will neither utter nor write anything critical of Israel, for fear it will draw their unwanted and unwelcome charge. Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, George W. Ball, once stated that the most powerful instrument of intimidation employed by Israel's U.S. lobby is that reckless charge of anti-Semitism. The fear reaches all government officials and intimidates all levels and sections of our society: business, education, academia, preachers, publishing, and other media. Pro-Israel forces long ago successfully redefined anti-Semitism to mean any criticism of the state of Israel. The Liberty crew and their supporters are among the few willing to risk that anti-Semitic smear. Just more food for thought.
Thanks for watching this and all our videos. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until we meet again, stay curious, fellow travelers, and have a great day.